Hi all, welcome back to the discussion on electrostatics. So today we are moving towards the second lecture of our topic. So before going to the second lecture, we can just revise what we have discussed in our first lecture. So these are the four main points we have discussed in the last class. That is what is electrostatics, the Coulomb's law, the superposition principle, and the concept of electric field. So just recall the electrostatics is just the physics of charges at rest. Okay, so I'll repeat, it is the physics of charges at rest. Okay, so the main the aim of the electrostatics is we will have some source charges. Okay, so there will be many source charges Q1, Q2, Q3, etc. And we have to find what would be the force exerted on the test charge capital Q. So this is the main aim of this particular branch. Okay, so if you have the system of charges at rest, then what would be the force exerted by it at some test charge at some distance from that source point. Okay, so in order to know it, we have to know two things. That is Coulomb's law and the superposition principle. So if you know these two, that means your electrostatics is complete. Okay, because that is enough to calculate what is the force on the test charge, because the Coulomb's law gives the force between 2-point charges. So it can be an attraction or repulsion depending upon the sign of the charges. Okay, so if the like charges are there, they will repel, and the opposite charges will attract. And the second one is a superposition principle. And superposition principle states that the total force on the test charge is just the vector sum of the individual forces by the different charges. So that means the force of attraction between the two charges are not depending upon the presence of the third charge. Okay, so the presence of another charge does not change the interaction between the first two charges. Suppose if you know the force between we can use another color. So if you know the force between the small q2 and capital Q, okay, if for that force I am denoting by the symbol F2, and if you calculate the force between the Q3 and capital Q, and I denote it is F3. Now F2 is constant. F2 is not depending upon the presence of Q3. Whether Q3 is present or not, the force between Q2 and capital Q is always F2. Okay, and therefore the total force on capital Q I can write F1, that is a force exerted by Q1, then F2 plus F3. So remember, all these are vectors. And finally, we have introduced what is meant by the electric field. Actually, the electric field is introduced to simplify this problem of the distance. Now, recall, in case of electrostatic force, the source, the cause and effect are separated by some distance. The cause is the source charge, the effect is the force on the test charge. Okay, there is no contact between them, but even though there is no contact, there is a force of attraction or repulsion between them. Now this can be simply explained by the concept of electric field. Okay, so this is what we have discussed in the last lecture. Now today we are going to introduce how to compute or how to calculate the electric field of a continuous charge distribution. Okay, so we can just recall the electric field of a point charge we have already stated, or the electric field at a point is the force experienced by unit positive charge placed at that point. So if you have a system of charges Q1, Q2, Q3, etc., and suppose you just denote some point P. Okay, we can call it as a field point. Now the field point, the field at the point P can be calculated by just keeping a test charge here. Okay, maybe the test charge is capital Q, then force experienced by capital Q and divided by capital Q. So this would give the electric field at point P. Okay. Now the problem is this capital Q cannot be very big, because if capital Q is very big, then what will happen is this capital Q will affect, it will exert some force on Q1, Q2, Q3, etc. And the source distribution would change. Okay, so we have to keep our test charge very small. Okay, so the correct way of writing the electric field at point P is limit capital Q tend to 0, F capital Q by capital Q. Okay, now in case of a point charge, it is very easy to find the electric field for a single point charge, small q. There's some point P here. Then the force, okay, if you consider a test charge capital Q, the force on capital Q would be, according to Coulomb's law, it is 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 small q capital Q by distance. Okay, suppose the distance is r square r cap. Then the electric field at point P, that would be equal to F capital Q by capital Q. That would become 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 small q by r square r cap. So this is the electric field produced by a point charge. Okay, so this definition we have to remember. Okay, so if you have a point charge, the electric field at a point, at some point away from that point charge, is simply 1 by 4 pi epsilon q by r square r cap. Okay, where r cap is the position vector, the direction of the vector connecting the source point to the field point. Now, the task of this second lecture is we have to find the electric field of continuous charge distribution. Okay, then first of all we have to answer the question, what is meant by continuous charge? Okay, so the continuous charge is like this. Okay, you can have a line charge distribution or surface charge distribution and volume charge distribution. So it is not like points. Okay, so earlier we have considered the examples of the collection of point charges. Okay, it's a system of discrete charges. Now it is not. Now here it is a continuous charge. Okay, so the charges are tightly packed along a line. Then it is called line charge. If it is tightly packed on a surface, then it is called surface charge. Okay, so this is an example for line charge. The charges are tightly packed along the line. So such kind of distribution is called line charge distribution. What is surface charge distribution? If you consider a surface, and if the charges are tightly packed along the surface, then it is an example of surface charge distribution. Now it need not be positive, it can be negative as well. And the volume charge distribution, that is if you consider a volume, and if the charges are tightly packed in the entire volume, then it is called the volume charge distribution. So these are the three different kinds of charge distribution: line charge distribution, surface charge distribution, and volume charge distribution. Now, how will you characterize such charge distribution? So in order to characterize the charge distribution, for a line charge distribution, we'll introduce a quantity called lambda. It is called line charge density. So line charge density is nothing but charge per length. So the number of charge per unit length, sorry, charge per length. So the number of charge per unit length is called the line charge density, and this is by definition we'll denote it by the symbol lambda. And the surface charge is characterized by sigma, and sigma is called the surface charge density. So can you guess what would be surface charge density? Yes, that's correct. So surface charge density is charge per unit area. And finally, we have the volume charge density rho. So rho is called the volume charge density. And rho is charge per volume. Okay, so these are the three different types of continuous charge distribution: line charge distribution, surface charge distribution, and volume charge distribution. Now, in this lecture, we are going to discuss how we can find the electric field produced by such continuous charge distributions. Okay. Now, the thing is, if you consider a line charge, okay, we can start with a simple example. Consider a line charge distribution. Okay, suppose the charge is tightly packed along this line. Okay, maybe some curved line. Okay. Now, what we can do is we can divide this line charge distribution into small segments and consider one of such infinitesimal segment, and that length of that infinitesimal length I can denote by symbol dl prime. Okay, then the amount of charge in that small length we can represent as dq, and dq would be equal to the charge per unit length times length. So the amount of charge in this small length, this small infinitesimal length, would be lambda dl prime, and that is represented by symbol dq. Now, if we have some field point somewhere here, okay, and the distance from the charge, distance from the charge to the field point, suppose if you denote it by symbol small r, then due to this infinitesimal charge, infinitesimal line charge dl prime or dq, the amount of electric field at point P we can denote by symbol dE at point P. This can be written as 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 dq by r square. Okay, because for practical purpose, this infinitesimal length or infinitesimal amount of line charge can be treated as a point charge. So this dq, the amount of this small charge dq, can be treated as a point charge, and therefore the electric field produced by this this point charge can be written as 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 dq by r square. So it is like the electric field produced by a point charge at point P. Okay, the electric field at point P is 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 q by r square r cap. Okay, so this we have already discussed. So the same thing we have extended here, but recall there is certain difference in our notation. Here we have represented the electric field as capital E and charge is small q. Here the electric field I introduced by the symbol dE because this is electric field produced by the small amount of dq charge. So that is why I have introduced that by symbol dE. Okay, and the infinitesimal point, the charge, line charge, I represent by symbol dq. So the electric field dEp is 1 by 4 pi dq by r square. Now recall it is a vector quantity, and therefore vectorially we can write this is dEp vector is 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 dq by r square r cap. Okay, then what would be the total electric field at point P? Now, I already said that we can divide this complete length by the small number of segments. So okay, a very large number of small segments. Okay, so there are many such small segments of length dl prime. So first I have find the electric field produced by the first segment. Then again, similarly, we can find out the electric field produced by the second segment. It will have the same expression, but the meaning of R would change. The R would be the distance from the second line element to the point P. Okay, so therefore this R is not a constant here. The R is a variable. And for third segment, again, the electric field will have the same expression, but the meaning of R would be different. Okay, so this would be R cap, direction of R cap as far as the first segment is concerned. And for if you consider the fourth segment, fourth line element, this would be the R, and direction, this direction, this would be R cap like this. Okay, so that means in general we can find out the electric field produced by each infinitesimal line charges. Okay, and in principle, if you add the electric field produced by the all small infinitesimal line charges, will get the total electric field at point P. That is according to the superposition principle. Okay, because the electric field has to obey the superposition principle. It is nothing but the electrostatic force on the unit positive charge. So since the electric force obeys the superposition principle, the electric field should also obey the superposition principle. And hence, the electric field at point P would be the sum of all infinitesimal electric fields. And since it is an infinite sum of the infinitesimal electric field, we can rewrite the summation as integration. So this would be the integral of dEP, and that would become 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 integral dq by r square r cap. Now this integral is not very easy. The problem is the r is a variable here, r square and r cap, both are variables. So therefore the integration is not very straightforward. Okay, so we have to find some techniques, or we have to find some symmetries in order to perform this integration. But in principle, this is the mathematical expression for the electric field produced by a line charge distribution. Okay, now we can rewrite in another way this electric field at point P. We can also written as 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 integral lambda dl prime r cap by r square. Okay, now according to our convention, usually we'll represent the position vector to the source by the primed symbol, and the position vector to the field point by the unprimed symbol. So if we have such a representation, then we can change the expression of R. Okay, that is, if we have a line chart, then first of all, just introduce a frame of reference. Okay, suppose this is our frame of reference S, and this is the origin. Now the vector from the origin, or the position vector of origin to the source, represented by symbol R cap. And that this is our field point. The position vector from the origin to the field point, represented by symbol R. Then the vector connecting the source to the field point, that would be R minus r prime, and this will be represented by the symbol script r. So this is a normal convention of electrostatics. So all the source region, the position vector of the sources, whether it is a line charge or the surface charge or volume charge, the position vector to the source point represented by symbol r prime, and the position vector to the field point represented by symbol r. Now here in this integration, what we'll do is we have to sum it over the different infinitesimal line charges. So that means this r prime is a variable. So for the first segment, this is the r prime. If you are going for the fourth segment, this would be the r prime. So the r prime would be the variable, whereas the r, the position vector of the field point, is fixed. So the no integration over the unprimed variable, all the integration is over the primed variable. So in that way, how we can rewrite this? So I will rewrite. So the electric field at point P, I can write as 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0. Okay, so better we can write DEP first. Then only you can understand what is happening there. Okay. So the electric field, the infinitesimal electric field at point P, due to this small segment, that would be equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 dq. dq is lambda dl prime divided by r square. Here r is the distance from the source to the field point. The source is this line segment, the small line segment. So that distance is script r, and therefore the distance square is script r square. And the direction is the unit vector connecting the field, the source point to the field point. So this should be your r cap. Okay, so this is the expression for the electric field produced by the small segment, and therefore the total electric field would be the integral of this expression. So the total electric field I can write as EP. That would be equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 integral lambda dl prime divided by r square r cap by the surface charge and as well as the volume charge. Okay, so this can be a general expression. Electric field is 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 dq by r square r cap. Okay, so this has followed our original expression like this. Okay, now we have to just replace dq with the lambda dl prime for line charge. Now what about surface charge? So if we have a surface charge, the surface charge can be divided into a large number of infinitesimal areas. So a small area can be denoted by symbol dA prime. And the amount of charges on this small area would be sigma dA prime. Okay, and therefore the electric field produced by this small charge at some distance r would be 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 sigma dA prime by r square r cap. Okay, I will not follow this convention for the time being. I have just write down the vector connecting the source point to the field point as unprimed r. Okay, so this r would be a variable. If you have this small area, then this would be your r. And hence the total electric field at point P would be the integral of this 1 by 4 pi epsilon sigma dA prime by r square r cap. And what about the volume charge distribution? Again, if you have some volume charge distribution, this volume Okay, so any volume charge distribution can be treated as the collection of very large number of infinitesimal cubes. Now each cube will have some volume, and that volume I can denote by symbol d tau prime. And the amount of charges in this small volume, I can represent that as rho d tau prime. So rho d tau prime would be the amount of charges in this small volume, and hence the electric field produced by this small volume at some point P at a distance R. How we can write? The electric field DEP is 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 rho d tau prime by R square R cap. And hence the total electric field would be the integral of this expression. So in general, I can write the electric field as 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 dq by R square R cap. And this dq can be replaced as lambda dl prime or sigma dA prime or rho d tau prime, depending upon the situation. Okay. So in general, in principle, this